Welcome to How to Prepare and Present Powerful Presentations. In case we haven't had the pleasure of meeting, I'm Patricia Fripp, and you are here invited because you are a client or a follower of the Henderson Group. And you will be meeting Chuck in just a moment, who is the president of the Henderson Group and our formal host. You have a third person in this conversation who is designed to serve you. That is Paul. He acts as our moderator, and he will tell you how to engage in polls and ask your questions. And we are very happy to answer your short, specific questions. Take it away, Paul.
Hello, everyone. On the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a chat box. Within that chat box, you can enter your short, specific questions throughout the call that we will answer live. Make sure to get them in sooner rather than later so we have plenty of time. In addition to the chat box, there's a polling area that will appear in the same location. When the question comes up, click your answer and then click vote. You'll have about 60 seconds to answer.
And Paul, what is our first poll?
Our first poll is, have you previously attended presentation training? And the options are in person, live through a webinar, or on-demand self-paced online training.
Or they can also say no if none of the are above. So while you are filling in that poll to see how much fun and how you can contribute, let me reintroduce you to the person you hear from or have probably met in the past, Chuck Kuglin, who is the president of the Henderson Group.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, and thanks for joining us. You were invited probably because you've experienced one of our programs in the past. You might be in one of our client companies, or possibly you follow us on the blog. The Henderson Group merged with Speechless Training earlier this year, and Speechless simplifies the world of presentations. Patricia Fripp is a real leader in our industry. In case you're not familiar with Patricia, she's a Hall of Fame keynote speaker, executive speech coach. She's a sales presentation skills trainer, and she's also an authority in online, or what we like to call on-demand training. Kiplinger's Personal Finance wrote that the 6th best way to invest in yourself is to learn presentation skills from Patricia Fripp. So Fripp, as her friends call her, how do professionals prepare to make their presentations more powerful?
Well, that's great, and you might be interested, Chuck, that I see 80% of our audience has attended in-person training. This is their first webinar, and 20% have not taken any training. So whatever your experience, we are thrilled and hope that we'll find this as action-packed and content-rich as we planned. So, Chuck, the secret of a good presentation starts at the very beginning when you are putting together your presentation and you start with the audience. So we have a few visuals to go along with what we're saying, because if you have ever participated in online learning, you know it's very good to add elements of variety. So when Paul is ready, he'll bring up the PowerPoint. I remember getting an email, Chuck, and this was when I was putting together my Fripp virtual training, my on-demand training. And the email said, "Dear Patricia, I'm a big fan of yours. May I interview you for my blog?" Well, at that point, Chuck, and you know me, I am more of a short-term project person, and designing the FRIPPVT was a long-term project. So I was trying to do my best to eliminate distractions. And I was about to send him an email saying, "I'm thrilled, I would be honored to be interviewed. Can you call me in 3 months?" And before I hit send, I thought, well, why don't I just click on his website? And that's who I found. Now, I admit, Chuck, at times I am very shallow. I picked up the phone and said, what is an Emmy Award-winning TV interviewer and game show host doing being one of my fans? After our 30-minute interview, he said, Patricia, this is great information, but tell me, what is the #1 secret of delivering a powerful, persuasive presentation. And I said, oh, there's no one way. And then it hit me. And I realized a brand new Frippicism was about to fall from my lips. I said, although there is no secret, no one secret, if there were, it would be that your subject is of interest to your audience. Now, we are lucky because you obviously have some interest in the subject. You accepted the invitation. You're either watching this live or the replay. However, many times we have to present bad news, or we have to present information to people who really didn't inconvenience themselves to come hear you speak. And therefore, we have to remember the #1 rule, and that is that other people are more interested in themselves than we are. And when you take that point of view, you will never go wrong. Now, I have a tendency, Chuck, obviously, to speak in black and white. We develop relationships, we have win-win negotiations, great. But focus our comments, whether it's a one-on-one meeting, because outside the privacy of your own home, all speaking is public speaking. There's no such thing as private speaking. So small presentations, staff meetings, sales presentations, or more formal presentations, we need to look at who is the audience and speak as an audience advocate. Take their point of view into consideration and watch how often we say I versus you. For example, I would not recommend any of us say, I am going to talk about. It's more what you will hear, what you will learn, what you will discover. Mm-hmm. And the purpose of what we are doing in this webinar is putting the speech structure and the actual words under the magnifying glass to take a closer look. So with that, Paul, I don't know if we have any questions yet. I know it's early in the call, but let me know anytime that anyone needs us to answer. So now let's go to the there are 3 ingredients that go into every presentation. So first of all, there's the content, what's going in there. Then we have to organize it in a logical speech structure. And then we can work on the delivery. Because often, Chuck, people say, oh, I've got my speech, let's work on the delivery. To which I always say, being the cheeky little person that I am, why would you want to perfect a poorly structured, badly scripted presentation? And I said, I'm not saying yours is, but we always have to look back. Let's look at the structure and the scripting, because when that is right, Chuck, so much of the delivery and the confidence comes, as they say in showbiz, security is knowing your lines. So to develop a simple, logical, conversational, easy structure that you can remember, and so can your audience, it all starts with this, as you see on the screen, a premise. Now, the definition of a premise is a basis of argument leading to a conclusion. Now, that might be confusing to you, but think of what is your big idea? What is your dominant thought? And I say to my clients, if you only had 1 sentence rather than 45 minutes, what would you say? If they answer in a paragraph, I say, what you are doing, you're explaining not only your central theme, but you're giving me the outline of your presentation. We need to start with 1 magnificent sentence. Now, perhaps you're in a situation, which professional speakers and trainers often are, is we deliver similar content for different audiences. So let's look at the simple premise statement that will help you focus on this audience at this time, even if your content is familiar. Now, this simple formula that just simply, and you will get a handout of this, but if you're taking notes, you write your notes down the page. Every, can, subject of your talk, result, how, your points of wisdom. Now, this does not make sense to you till we fill in the blank. So now let's go to the premise of this presentation, fill in the blanks to give you an idea. So, for example, for this event, if we were to say every Henderson client can better prepare and present powerful, persuasive presentations. Now, obviously, you are experienced. You've at least 80% of you have taken some training, and we know you're business professionals, so I'm not suggesting that you are novices. I'm suggesting that when you look at your structure and your scripting under the magnifying glass and taking a closer look, you can make it even more effective. Now, if we were having a conversation, like I say to Chuck, he'd say, oh, what are you going to talk about? Well, every one of your clients can deliver more powerful, persuasive presentations. He'd say, that's what I want my clients to do. How do they do that? And I'd say, by designing your presentation focused on the audience, which we have been discussing. 2, structuring your presentation or speech or sales presentation more conversationally. In other words, I know based on what content's being delivered, we know what the audience is thinking. So structure it more conversationally around, if Chuck were asking me the questions, I would answer them. The audience is like Chuck, there's more of them. Then Chuck, I would say we have to add memorable stories and razor sharp specificity, because specificity builds your credibility. And then 4th, building rehearsal into our everyday life. And you might say, well, I got an hour presentation in 3 weeks, but I don't have time to lock myself in the boardroom. And you can bring me back up, Paul, for the moment. And you would say, I don't have time to spend 2 hours rehearsing every day. No, but you're driving to work, you're walking up to people at the water fountain and saying, have I ever told you at the time that I first came to work here? Or, would it interest you to know? So what you were doing, Chuck, is you're rehearsing segments of your presentation conversationally when you're driving, and if you have a very important presentation, my personal best rehearsal is on the treadmill. Because when you're moving, you've got both legs going. As I'm talking to myself, you can see very left brain structure, yet right brain for the way the words are phrased and come together.
Patricia, can I ask you a question?
Of course you can.
The idea of the takeaway sentence, or the main one line, it seems so logical. It seems so straightforward, so simple, really. And I'm sure everyone would agree with that. But can you give us an example of where people get derailed from that objective?
All right. Well, yes, because we try and make everything more complicated, because remember, it's just the big idea. What's the central theme? So, for example, a specific example, every year I speak for the American Payroll Association. This is a 20-year client. And one of the sessions I present is for payroll managers. So the session is called Selling Yourself and Your Ideas to Your Senior Management. The premise, after my opening story, and I will actually say, now you don't always state the premise, because the statement is to get you ready, it's to get you focused. And when I'm talking about presentations, I usually do say, my premise is, every payroll manager can sell themselves and their ideas to the upper management. And now this is where the conversational part comes in. They say, oh, Patricia, I want to do that. How do I do that? Now, if I'm having a conversation, they're going to ask me. If it's an audience, they're going to think it. Now, you'll also notice, Chuck, part of the formula was the result. Because some of our subjects, we're selling the result.
Mm-hmm.
So I could say, and I'll give you another couple of examples. I could say every payroll manager can get promoted. Oh, I want to get promoted. How do I do that? You need to learn to sell yourself and your ideas to your senior management. Oh, yes, I want to do that. So I'm selling the result. Now, if we have sales professionals here, your premise is, you're not going to state this, but you know your premise is your company will be better off when they do business with my company. That's your central theme. And you, with the structure of your presentation, have to sell your premise, and you have to prove your premise of how they're better off. Now, what you might do is say, thank you for the opportunity, and this is how you are transitioning into your premise. Thank you for the opportunity to prove how the ABC company can help you accomplish your goals, whatever accomplish your goals are there. I don't know if I made that clearer or muddier for you.
Yes, and it's speaking to the results, and yes, thank you for that.
All right, good. So Paul, let's go back to the PowerPoint and see what comes next. Good. So now we're actually, Chuck, we're going to put this together. So we start with our central theme, and the first 30 seconds and the last 30 seconds of your presentation are very impactful. You don't necessarily write the opening and the close first, but just be aware that when you put this all together, that has to be very important. Right. We imagine, what is the audience thinking based on the circumstance? So from your opening, and our next section is going to be on openings, because that's an area that a lot of people are very weak on. So you transition into the body of your speech. And it could be, you might not say your premise, but you say is, the purpose of our meeting is to discuss how we are going to incorporate our plans for 2017. Now, your first talking point, I call it a point of wisdom. And I think calling it that proves to you that this is powerful. So your first point of wisdom, whatever it might be, you're going to give an explanation. What do you mean by that? Then you would give an example, and then the application for the audience. So perhaps I might say one of the talking points is, we need to be clear and concise. All right, that sounds logical. What do you really mean? And I'd say the world is turning into sloppy speakers, probably because so much of our communication is fast and with text, that the reason, Chuck, people need more presentation skills, because, incredible though it seems, we often, in many industries, talk to people less than we used to. Yeah. So an example of how you can be more specific would be looking at the quality of your words. The question that I most frequently ask my clients is, what do you mean by thing? Because that's non-specific. So if you want to be clear, concise, and credible, you need to have very specific language and choose the quality of your words. Now, based on this audience, I might say, now this application is, we are getting ready for the year-end report to your senior management, where you really have to bottom line your message. So the clearer and the more specific your word choice and the shorter your sentences, the more they're going to remember what you say and be able to repeat it. So that's an example. And as we're talking about January sales meetings, which most companies put together, what you're probably also going to do is look at a second formula that you might use in developing. These are chunks of content. And this is looking at it from a time frame. So, for example, you have a seamless, oh, no, sorry, the historical view. Yes, certainly. So, if you look at, for example, what are we going to do in January? So, last year, in the past, this is what we've done. This is where we are now, and looking forward to the future, these are our plans for 2017. Now, perhaps you are selling an idea of change in your company. So you might talk about, historically, this is what we have done. This is why we have always done it, and that made absolutely perfect sense. However, now we find ourselves losing market share because of these three specific reasons. So we're going to have to change. And as people are not necessarily embracing change as easily as we would like, the purpose of this meeting has been to help you better understand why we need to change, set together a plan of how we can do it in a more comfortable way, and to share the vision of what our company and your responsibilities and your results will be, because we maximize the change process. And then if we look at another example, so that I'm not saying you need all these, however, they're good to have in your back pocket when you're designing your presentation. The next way would be, let's see, regional. Again, in your January sales meetings, you're always going to look at, this is what we did locally. This were the results nationally. And as you will remember, in 2016, in January, we introduced that we are now expanding internationally, and these are the results. So however you put together your presentation, this is logical. And at this point, although we are showing it to you in your PowerPoint, I suggest you do this on a whiteboard, a flip chart, or paper before you develop your PowerPoint. Now, once you've gone through all the talking points, you're going to do a review. Now that you know that even a seasoned professional like you can better prepare and present powerful programs by, now you're going to do a review of your talking points. You might ask them, what are your specific questions? And then I would recommend you add some challenge. And for this, I would challenge you, once you take the handout, which we'll send you after the presentation, take any notes you've made and teach somebody else what you believe you learned, because that is the best way that you are going to be able to internalize new ideas. And then you close on a high.
It strikes me, Patricia, that this is the Fripp speech model, but you can apply it, as you said earlier, to regular conversations, meetings. If you're leading or trying to set up a call, this model can be applied there as well.
Exactly. It's a way of organizing your thoughts. And we'll happily send out to all your clients a PDF of this basic speech structure along with the PowerPoint images put together. One of my clients from ADP, she says, Fripp, I don't even allow my direct reports to come into my office until they filled in their Fripp speech diagram, because it's a way of focusing your question, focusing any questions you have, your content, your report in advance. And this is how you prove to your boss, your leadership, or your clients that you can think clearly, concisely, you're prepared, you're specific, and as we know, the secret, Chuck, is focusing on the audience.
Great,
so,
thank
Paul,
you.
Good. Paul, do we have any questions?
Not right now.
They're hanging on our every word. Good. All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint and see what's next. Good. If there were one area after helping people to organize their thoughts, it's how do you come out punching? It's amazing. So many great professionals and very often very seasoned speakers They are fine once they get started, but it's amazing. Very few of them know how to open and conclude. And remember, the first 30 seconds and the last 30 seconds has the most impact. I have one biotech firm, very smart, brilliant people. And very often they say, oh, we got a presentation, we'll run through it, but we need to work on the opening and the close. So that is why we always focus plenty of time on this. So Paul, next slide. Let's look at some of the techniques, and then the next slide will give you specific examples that would tie into these techniques. Now, also what we can send you is 25 different techniques and 25 different opening lines that will help you as part of the follow-up packet. But get to the point. Now, getting to the point is certainly, if you have 10 minutes with your senior management, get prepared. Get to the point fast. Now, the next one might be and again, staff meeting, could be a sales presentation, could be a formal presentation, would be a question. You can use a direct question or a rhetorical question. And if you get good, that's fine, Paul, and then an interesting statistic or little known fact, and we'll again give you some words that would go along with it. And I promise you, in many presentations, you do have a little known fact or an interesting statistic, and it's in there. You just pull it out and push it at the beginning to engage the audience into your subject. The next one would be a statement. This is a statement of your point of view about the presentation, because when you're up there in front of your audience, you are the authority. Good? Another one is transport the audience. Now, this is a technique, and there are a couple of words, one specifically, that will transport your audience to a different time and place. And again, next slide we give you examples, and the last one, a story and example. Now, certainly within a presentation, you are always going to use good stories and examples, because stories explain the complex. Stories help illustrate. The stories are a way to help your audience see what you're talking about. So, okay, Paul and Chuck, let's see some word examples. And again, the handouts they're going to get, many of my clients say, are some of the most valuable. So getting to the point would be the purpose of this meeting too. So you walk in the boss's office or a client, and it's fine, Paul, if you bring up a second one, leave it there, that's okay. You want, after the pleasantries, you're going to say, Chuck, the purpose of the meeting is to update you on, that's it. Now, again, thank you for the opportunity is a good way to transition into a presentation, a sales presentation. If you're speaking at a meeting and you've just been asked for an update, that's a good way. You will remember at our last meeting, again, this is a great way to get to the point with your segment, because it's either a short meeting or you are part of an agenda. So we hope those will be helpful for you. Now, when it comes to a question, I often start presentations with, if I were to ask you, is 2016 the year you double the quality of your presentations? Mm-hmm. Perhaps you'd say yes. Perhaps you'd say no. Most likely you would say, Patricia, I would love it to be, can you tell me how? Well, great, you're at the right place at the right time. Let's roll up our sleeves and look at how you can better prepare and present more powerful, persuasive presentations. So you see, now if you're going to have an interesting statistic or little known fact, it might be, would it interest you to know that 72% of, okay, whatever your statistic is, and it could also be, would it surprise you to know that the 1/3 of our sales force who've invested in presentation skills earn 50% more than those who don't. And then let's see what else. Now, when it's a statement, and I often start presentations with a statement, it never ceases to amaze me that intelligent, well-educated, and ambitious individuals frequently overlook developing the #1 skill that is absolutely guaranteed to position themselves ahead of the crowd, namely developing the ability to stand up and speak eloquently with confidence, or at very least stagger to their feet and say anything at all. Okay, good. So the way you transport the audience to a different time and place is imagine. Make sure when you say imagine that you are taking them to a place that they would want to go. Now let's imagine this Chuck is what, September the 13th, 2016.
Yeah.
If this were an in-person meeting, and we know who the audience is, I could say, imagine it is September the 13th, 2017. And as you get ready for your day, you take a moment to reflect that you have never felt so personally and professionally satisfied. You've never earned quite as much income as the last 6 months, and you've had more satisfaction, you have more results, and you take a moment to think, what made the difference? And then you remember, on September the 13th, 2016, you signed up for a webinar, and the speaker challenged you to make presentation skills a priority. So you see, that is one way you can take them in the future and then ask, is this a reality? This is a great technique, Chuck, if you are getting people ready for some incentive program or a sales, a sales contest. Right. So who's going to go to Tahiti? It depends on the actions you take. All right, good, Paul. Let's see what comes next.
Let's go back to.
All right, well, okay, so this is another way that you can transport the audience to a different time and place. So it could say, let's go back to September the 13th, 1996. Our leadership was working out of a garage in Silicon Valley. Okay, so you see, you could take them back, and this is a great technique. Many of the people I help with their presentations are doing the kickoff orientation for new employees, and that is a great technique. Let's go back to the beginning of the company. Now, this is where you're coming in, but it's important to understand and honor our history as we're going forward, so something like that. All right, if I were to ask you, now this is, of course, I gave you the example, if I were to ask you, is 2016 the year? Now, I'm not saying I am asking you, but if I were, and you see, I give you 3 choices of which, so is this the year? You might say yes, you might say no, most likely you would say, Patricia, I would love it to be. So the third one goes into what you're actually going to discuss. And in case you're thinking, well, why don't you just ask the audience? Well, if it is an audience you do not have a relationship with, it is not a good bet to ask them to participate until you've built rapport with them. It's safer to do it this way. Because as you know, Chuck, and as you, I know, have taught people, if you don't get off to a good start, the perspiration is running down your back. And that is not good for your confidence. And it's not good for the audience. Look, oh gosh, we've just terrified our guest speaker or our new manager. All right, so Paul, let's go back to the next one. Yes, don't forget, thank you for your business is not a good way, is not a bad way to open and conclude your presentation. And then if part of the Fripp premise is if you sound the same as everybody else, you have no advantage. And especially in a lot of work with sales presentations, what most people do is say, hi, my name is John Smith and I'm with the ABC company and this is what we do. No, no, no. Remember, they're more interested in themselves than you. So I suggest every sales presentation starts with congratulations. What are they proud of? Make sure that you start talking about them and you acknowledge what they've done well. And then you might say, thank you for the opportunity to help you accomplish whatever the goals are for your meeting. So does that make sense to you, Chuck?
Yes, very much. These are good openers, and especially if you can personalize it to the situation, your own situation and their situation, so that you're really speaking, you're meaning, you're intending what you're saying.
Okay, good. Now, Paul, I don't know that we have any questions, do we?
Not right now.
Okay, well, keep them coming in if you want to. That's absolutely not a problem. If you just want to, for those of you who are watching the replay, if you want to send us questions, we will certainly answer them. We understand many of our attendees watch the replay. All right, Paul, just quickly let's go to the next segment just to make sure our attendees know how to close their presentation on a high. And this is a quick review that you have heard. So one, you need with a rhetorical question based on the premise. So how do you better prepare and present? So that's why it's so good to be clear with your premise, because you do your review with a rhetorical question based on your central theme. Then you do a review of your key points. And it's not bad to think, what is the next logical step for them as well? What do you want them to do with this information? And certainly I would recommend some call for action.
Absolutely.
Yes, and in a perfect world, you are going to circle it with the opening. So this is not necessarily the most, you don't have to, but it's a good technique. So have the thought, the idea, the story, the philosophy, the flavor of the opening, you want to tie up in a bow in a circle, and always remember your last words linger. And that's all we have is not a good last words linger. It might be, for example, in a sales presentation, one of my clients was remember 187 profitable quarters. Another was remember 99% of the Fortune 100 do business with us. So it could also be, if you're from a small entrepreneurial firm, remember when you do business with us, you have the president's cell phone available to you 24/7. So it's whatever is your competitive edge that you need to reinforce. So let's go back so Chuck and I can have a conversation, Paul.
Yeah. Well, Patricia, since I've got you on here, I just want to ask you. We've spoken about something in this vein before. What's a dirty little secret you can share with us about the training industry?
Well, the dirty little secret in the training industry, Chuck, and both of us have made good livings in the training industry, is that when you have a great speaker and great content and an audience who genuinely wants to learn, pays attention, takes notes, even reads the handout material, 2 weeks later, they've forgotten 70% of what they learned. Now, hopefully, the 30% makes a major difference. However, you and I know there is only one way to truly develop a new skill and to master it, and that is with repetition and reinforcement. So what we have done over the last few years, really as the request of many of our clients, is to prepare an easy, simple, convenient, and cost-effective way for people to improve their presentation skills. And Paul, if we can actually show people what FRIPPVT looks like. So if this is an area that you would be interested in perfecting, sales presentations, all presentations, and as I say, whether it's just individually for you or for a company, we recommend you certainly take a trial. So what Paul, here we have is FRIPPVT. So FRIPPVT stands for Fripp Virtual Training. And for example, let's go to the training center, Paul, and why don't we show them as soon as we get in there? Seeing we've been talking about openings, let's go in and just look at the beginning of the first chapter of openings. Now we're going to recommend you take a trial and you can see the whole chapter on this, but we want to give you a little taste. This is the future.
Welcome to You Have Choices, Options of Openings, the Techniques. In this course, you will learn you have dozens of opening techniques to choose from, all with samples of how you can use them. If you're ready, click the Start Training button. Welcome to You Have Choices, Options of Openings, the Techniques. As you soon will come to discover, our subtitle is How to Open Your Presentation with Impact. At the beginning of a speech, presentation, seminar, client meeting, report to senior management, sales presentation, or any manner of presentation you deliver, you need to arouse interest in the subject. After all, we stand in the rain to see a movie. Would you stand in the rain to listen to your presentation?
Okay, Paul, now let's show our friends what was really the next area of discussion. Let's just show them the opening of stories, because you have to have good stories and examples in any presentation. And if your audience wouldn't stand in the rain to hear your presentation, perhaps you need FRIPPVT. Okay, Paul, thank you. So we're going to stories. So within the FRIPPVT, there are 14 different courses, plus we're adding more content all the time.
The importance of a good story. Nobody can resist a good story well told. In this course, you will learn the techniques that will make your stories and examples memorable and repeatable. If you're ready, click the Start Training button. How often have you sat in an audience and been mesmerized by a speaker? Was it their compelling content? Were their stories scintillating? Do they have the ability to reach out and grab you in a way you thought, wow, the speaker is talking just to me? Be honest. How many life-changing, career-building, or awe-inspiring presentations have you heard? Have you ever been that speaker?
All right, good. Well, we can teach you to be that speaker, and you learn some of the techniques with your free trial. Now, Chuck, I believe you had a question about what's in it for your friends and clients.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say to everybody, I'm going through these modules myself, and one by one, and one of the things I love about it There's testing inside it. There's lots of modules of interest. It doesn't take that long. I'm trying to do something each week. And we wanted today to make sure we at least offered everyone the opportunity to check this out. It's really, really quite good. And it's taken Patricia, with all of her years of experience, quite a while to develop it. So there's a lot in there. I'm not through the whole process yet, but I'm working my way through it. And it's not just for your presentations. I want to make that point. It's also, as you said earlier, Patricia, it helps you in your conversations, in your meetings, in your conference calls, in preparing for getting a meeting. So there's just quite a bit to it. So I think, Patricia, the next thing we wanted to do was offer them some discounted way should they take the trial and pursue it.
Absolutely. So
we got to do that.
Paul, let's bring up that part so people can really see what we'd like them to do and what their investment would be if they're interested. So first of all, we are going to recommend that you take a trial. And that's only fair. We want you to see the quality that you've just got a taste of. So you go to FRIPPVT.com, and Paul will certainly put that in the side chat box. You'll find a form here. You just put your name and your email address in, and then you will get into the system. You'll have a week to see a chapter on openings and stories and sales. Because many of our larger clients, they are mainly interested in sales presentations. And some of our clients, they don't even meet in person. They do all their webinars, their presentations in webinars. And the quality of the words is so important. So next slide, Paul. There. So for example, if you decide this is something you would like, we've given you a coupon code, Chuck, because Chuck is your host who invited you, and that would save you 10%. So that means if this is just for one person, just for you, your first month would be $267.30, and then $26.10 a month as long as you want it. So you literally have it as long as you want. Now, because we have user meetings and people have access to have their questions answered, because we are constantly adding past webinars and content-rich. I have a sales series where I interview sales experts. We put it within your FRIPPVT system so you would never run out of content, and you learn not only from me but my expert friends. So we hope you will take advantage of that. And if you think this might be something that you'd be interested for your company, just reach out to either Chuck or me, and we'll put together a customized presentation, a demo for you. Because within the system, if you have a team, as Chuck said, there's testing, tracking, and monitoring everybody's progress. So you really can see that you're maximizing your investment. So, Paul, are there any questions at this point? I see you've got some chat.
Oh, yes. There's one question asking if the call is being recorded. And, of course, yes, it is recorded. And everyone will receive the replay link. And then Louisa and Jeff both said that they didn't have any questions at the moment. Jeff said that he was listening and found the content wonderful.
Well, good, and we do appreciate that. The idea was certainly we want to show you how you can get more, but as a standalone, we wanted to make sure that you had great content. So, Paul, if we can now go to the slides on the area of stories, because you can get more in your FRIPPVT trial. Stories are a very important, powerful part. Think stories, examples, case history. Now, this formula, if you're putting together a story, and it might interest you to know, it is the outline, Chuck, of every Hollywood movie. Okay. Every Hollywood movie, and let's face it, Hollywood knows how to tell a story better than anybody else. You're introduced to your hero, the protagonist, the person whose eyes you see the film through. So you're introduced a day in the life, and then something happens. The result of that is, and the result of that is. So that is the first formula, and this might be how you might use it. So, Paul, if you bring it back to me, and then we'll go to the second formula. A day in the life. So imagine, let's say you are, it might be, how about welcoming new employees? It could be, if you had met me in January of 2009, you would have seen a shy, introverted young woman applying for a technical job with our company. However, what she did was take advantage of the internal Toastmaster clubs, the opportunities for mentoring, the attending online seminars, and group discussions after work for the cross-functional teams. You would now understand how that she has the confidence to stand in front of 300 of our brand new employees and interns and feel clear, calm, and confident speaking in front of you. So that could be about you. Now, what you could also do in a sales presentation is you could use this example. You're introducing to a day in your life. Jeff had a problem. He walked into his office, opened his computer, and saw the news headlines. The major competitor had just released a competing software program, and it was free. Within 3 weeks, their market share in their best product had dropped by 46%. All right, day in the life, something happened. Now the result of that is, and the result of that is. So Paul, now go back to, this is a formula that will serve you well in all presentations, but especially sales presentations. And this is the formula of simply the situation. So we've used the combination of day in the life, and this, you're going to use this especially if you're talking about satisfied clients. Satisfied clients who have the same problem that the person you want or the company you're now talking to. So a day in the life, something happened. That was it. Now, as a result of that, what they did was they called your company, and you went through your 3-step process, whatever it is you were selling them, that was the solution. And then, of course, you're going to tell the end, which is the happy ever after. Now, there's part of this formula which will transform a good story into a great story, and that is when you are talking about the client's situation and their success, you do it in their own words. So, Paul, if you can bring it back to me. Good. So you might be saying, thank you for the opportunity to discuss how the ABC firm needs to increase their market share in this area, whatever you would be selling them. And then you'd say is, John and Susie have been very generous with their time and their information, and they told me that your biggest challenges are bullet, bullet, bullet. And you take the first one and you say, based on our last 12 years, we excel in helping our clients with this specific challenge. Now you're going to introduce the situation. So this is who it was. He went to his desk. This was the problem. And when Chuck picked up the phone, he said, help. We are losing market share. We've made a commitment that we do not want to lay off employees, but we have to do something drastic fast. What can you do? Then you go into your solution, and the solution is your words. So what we did for Chuck was bullet, 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 bullet. And then you can say, If Chuck were here, he would tell you, we would not have believed it possible that within 3 months we did this, 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 this. You will not go wrong doing business with the ABC firm. And you might say, we can't promise you the exact results that Chuck had because fortunately your challenge is not as great as his was. However, what you could look forward to is bullet, bullet, bullet. Right. So hopefully that you understand how stories and examples like this in a sales presentation, it's as if you are taking your satisfied clients with you on your sales calls. So you need the simple formula, day in the life, something happened, and the result of that is, and the result of that is. So the result of that is they called you. The next result of that was you solved their problem. And it's the situation is always in their words, the solution of how you would solve it in your words, and then the success is in their words. It's what we call delivering the dialogue, not reporting on the dialogue. If you said, oh, Chuck mentioned that he couldn't believe it was possible how fast we got results. It's much more dramatic. You say, if Chuck were here, he would say, I would not have believed it possible that within 3 months you could. Hopefully you can tell the difference. So, Paul, do we have any questions or comments?
Looks like we're clear for now.
All right, good. Well, feel free to write to Chuck and me and Paul if you can make sure both our emails are in the chat box for everybody to see. So let's do a quick review.
Well, we did have one question.
Oh, good.
It's from Luisa. She's actually dialing in from Guatemala. Let's see. Using the technique with new staff to motivate and start creating culture and identity with the company. Since the first presentation, she works for a university in the area. Oh, sorry. How to use this technique. She works for a university in HR.
All right, good. Well, one, I would tell stories about alumni that match them, the students. And I would start the presentation, when people come in, I would walk around and shake hands. It's what I call the warm-up act. You act as your own warm-up act and you engage the audience. Your presentation starts long before you actually get on stage or stand at the front of the room. I call it the schmooze factor. Go around, shake hands, welcome, blah, blah, blah. And then I would start, your first 30 seconds would be something like, congratulations, you have made one of the biggest decisions of your career, where you chose to attend this university to properly prepare you for a long-term successful career. So something like that, and then so that's all about them, and then you can tell the story about some of your faculty, and let's say, well, let's look at what you can look forward to and how you can best navigate your university experience so you immediately feel at home and comfortable.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It's actually for new staff.
Oh, new staff?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you got 2 for 1. All right, good. So the new staff would be, welcome to your most rewarding career choice. You have an awesome responsibility shaping the future of the leaders, of the next generation's leaders. They are here for an education. However, their parents have entrusted us to nurture their minds, bodies, and characters. So I hope that would help.
And that's all we have.
All right, good.
Thank you, Patricia.
So certainly, all right, so let's go back to a quick review. 1, focus. A powerful presentation is focused on the audience. And you do that by 1, thinking of as an audience advocate. Based on the subject and the situation, what would they want to know? And certainly use as much you-focused language rather than I-focused language as you can. Every presentation, however formal or informal, starts with the premise, the big idea, and then a simple, logical outline. You're going to, as you put it together, put stories and razor-sharp specificity. Look at the caliber of the words. You don't say stuff. You don't have things. You don't have tons. You have very specific language. And always work on good openings and good closes, because you start with impact and close on a high, and your last words linger. And stories and examples help your audience see your presentation. If you would like to pursue developing your presentation skills, please, at very least, take a free trial of FRIPPVT.com. And certainly if you would like more of a formal demonstration for you, your team, your company, or your university, just let Chuck and me know. We're happy to set it up and organize it for you. If you want to invest, use Chuck as your coupon code to save. Thank you for the opportunity to meet you. We hope you'll enjoy the replay and the handouts and learning materials we provided. And remember, 30% is all you will remember, which is why we give you the replay. But all learning, real true learning, requires repetition and reinforcement. All right, take it back to you, Chuck.
Thank you, everyone, for participating. And I want to just say, Patricia, I've seen you in front of 500 people, and I've seen you when you're working with individuals or in small teams, as we often do. I think you're not only phenomenal, it's also happening in the virtual training. What you guys have to know is this customization and personalization that Patricia does is working on the interactive reinforcement modules that we like so much. So please give it a try. And thanks again for coming.
All right, and Chuck, will you be inviting your community to other events in the future?
Yes, you will definitely be hearing from us.
Okay, good. And Paul, before we close out the system, we would love people to answer the question, was this a valuable experience? And certainly if there are any questions, any of our viewers who will watch the replay, feel free to send us questions and we will answer them in email to you. So anything else come in, Paul?
No other questions, and not surprisingly, 100% of everyone said that this information has been valuable.
Well, good. Then we have lived up to our expectation and our hope that this will be a valuable investment in your time. So, Chuck, let's wave goodbye to your
everyone.
Clients.
Bye now.
Bye.